Okie doke. I'm back again, working on the dehydrating the blueberries. Got those started, and I've got my apples here that we're going to do the apple cinnamon for the apple cinnamon waffles, chaffles, whatever you want to call them. It's up to you guys. Uh, so this has worked out really good for me for the last couple of years. Took a while to really figure out what worked best, especially with my physical limitations. You kind of, for me, it's easier to sit down doing this. And what I like to do is I get a big pitcher. You could use a bowl, but big pitcher like this works good for me. And what I like to do is I will add a quarter teaspoon of, it says, I believe, ascorbic acid. It's basically vitamin C powder. And what that does is it kind of keeps the apples from turning brown. Not that you'd really notice it after they're dehydrated and cooked in the waffle, but um, it just, to me, I think it gives just a little bit extra tang to the Granny Smith apples that when I've tried it without, by the time they're coated with cinnamon, you don't notice the browning, but it does just seem to keep the flavor a little bit better, closer to whole. And so I'll set that off to the side. And we're just going to grab a cutting board here. Oh, and yes, I have to sit down doing this. So the only other things you need really are a peeler and a knife. And you want to make sure that your knives are nice and sharp. And this one is, because I keep my knives sharp. But I've seen a lot of people use some different peelers. This is an OXO from, oh, I don't know, 25 years ago. And I love it because it's got a cutter up top for, if you're doing potatoes, you can get the eyes out. But if you also have bad parts of the apple too. So this was one of those things growing up. My dad could do this with any knife, and I don't know why it was so amazing as a kid to watch somebody peel an apple and have one whole peel. It was just amazing for some reason. So these are just regular Granny Smith apples. They really work good in the waffles because of the fact that they're tangy. They've got that snap to them, that pucker factor, I guess you could say. And so what I like to do, I already did one. This is one I did with the paring knife. I mean, you can see the difference. This one's a little battered and bruised up, but I don't. I've got one of those peeler core slicers. I just prefer doing it this way. It's not faster for sure, but I do like the variation in the slices compared to what the 3-in-1s give you. So I just take these and then basically, I don't know if we can see that. Yeah, it's looking okay on camera. And we're trying to get them down to about that size. If you go any smaller than that, then you really don't I don't think you taste them enough. Same with the core slicer peeler. You They come out so thin, and even though I haven't had anyone complain about the flavor or texture on them, uh, I just, this way you get a little bit more um, flavor in each one, in each bite that you get an apple in. The other thing I like to do is kind of rock the knife forward and then pull straight back. That really seems to help. What's that one? Really seems to help with not sticking. Because if I just go straight down, it sticks to the knife. And you could dip your knife in the water if you want, but just that down, pull back. That works on potatoes too. So if you're cutting a bunch of potatoes, that works just as good. So, and I'm really, it's up to you. If you want to go in and get that last little bit of core, you can. But to me, this is a lot easier. So. I know this is really exciting to watch, so we will eventually I'm hoping to get into doing live chats. If anyone wanted to sit around and talk about things while I'm going through this, like medical issues, what I had to go through for all of my diagnoses, all of the tests that I had to go through. Cooking projects like this would be a really great time for doing that, being that, we're sitting here at one place. I'm pretty much set up for live streaming, and eventually I will get to that point. Right now it's just really important for me to get everything kind of up and squared away on the website, get the recipes uploaded before I move on to something different. Now, another helpful tip is, and this is hard for some people to do, it's really hard for me because I hate having fingernails. So, one of the key things that you'll ever learn from any cooking show is, kind of use your fingernails to lock that in there. I don't know if you can see that. You don't want to cut it like this because you're gonna, or your thumb. If your thumb's over here, you're gonna slice off the front of your thumb. So, you use your fingers, kind of put your fingernails into it to hold it, and then that way, that front part of your finger, your knuckle, right here, that kind of holds everything in place. And then you just go down. And it's so important to have sharp knives. It's always been one of my biggest pet peeves was people thinking that it was safer to use a dull knife than a sharp knife. And I can tell you from personal experience that the damage that's done by a dull knife is a million times worse than a sharp one. There's a reason why when I was younger and there used to be kind of not really a joke, but if you weren't exactly getting along with someone, you might say something like, "I'm going to stab you with a spoon," uh, just because it's so much worse than getting cut by a sharp knife. One of the other things I probably should bring up too is so these are board scrapers, uh, and they come in all different kinds of shapes and sizes. If you want to use one to, instead of using your knife to scoop, you can definitely use one of these. I'll show you how that works in a second. I don't do it just because it's one extra step for me. But they do come in handy, especially if you have dexterity issues. So, that's the way I do it. I just slide my blade under it, pick it up, and put it in. Now, you would just use the card scraper the same way. This one's a bowl scraper. It's got the round edge. These are usually for doing dough, but you can still use it that way. These are a lot better because they do have a sharper edge to pick up, and this one is almost as, it's not as sharp as the knife, but if you run this across your hand, you are going to cut yourself. So you got to be careful with these, and that's how you would do it. So on to the next one. It'll be interesting. This is really the first trial run of the camera setup. New lights, new cameras, new software. I've got not sure how you say it, newer wireless microphone that looks to be picking up pretty good. This has all been such a learning experience for me. All my life fixing cars and houses and running sound and composing music and recording music and having a small karaoke business. Um, yeah, it's been a bit weird having to switch all these gears because if you've been following me for a while, I started out wanting to do a cookbook, and yeah, that was complicated trying to get into that. Testing the recipes weren't so bad, but trying to, and I have to do a lot of that now still with taking pictures, is going to be a big challenge. So there you can see that's how that works. What was I saying? Kind of the transformation through all of this. Going from cookbook to just wanting to, because that whole point, the whole cookbook started with the fact that when I was at my worst, I really hardly could cook for myself, and I needed to. I mean, the celiac disease was so bad that I can't do any grains. And that took me 2 years of being gluten free to figure out. And then also figuring out that I've got hereditary fructose intolerance, which limits me to around 4 grams of fructose per day, which is, it's about what, 1/4 to 1/2 of a particular apple. Because I was trying to eat healthy, fresh foods, kept having all these issues, took all the grains out of my diet, but was still eating veggies mostly. Wasn't eating a lot of fruits. I've never liked sweets. And that's what led me to the HFI, hereditary fructose intolerance diagnosis, which the technical term is Adelase B deficiency, I believe. So that's kind of a sticky widget. The research, there's not a lot of research out there to start with. And some of the research nowadays, since COVID, we were seeing some news stories for a while that kids were, little kids, 3 to 8 years old, with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Doctors were blaming it on COVID. Some people were blaming it on the vaccines. And in a lot of those cases, from what I read, it turned out that the kids had hereditary fructose intolerance or something similar, and their parents had been giving them, juice boxes, Gatorade, Powerade, all of the sodas. Which I understood from dealing with my own issues, because you think about an apple, okay? The old saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, that might be completely true if it was apples from like 100 years ago. Nowadays, one little juice box is compressed apple juice, and then they add high fructose corn syrup to it. So each one of those little juice boxes has, possibly 120 grams of fructose. A normal person, healthy person, most studies I read said around 24 grams of fructose per day is what a healthy person can process. Anything after that goes straight to your liver, can't get broken down, and when you just keep eating it over and over and over and over again, it's disastrous. I think we're gonna start seeing a lot more people talk about it in the coming years. But for now, this is about all I can have the energy for. And the other thing that people don't realize too is that fruits and veggies were seasonal. So you didn't have access to all that sugar that we do today. And high fructose corn syrup is a completely different story, because that is mostly made from corn. It's basically boiled down. Then they add a bunch of chemicals to it to break it into simple glucose and fructose. And you end up with a product that instead of 50-50 like regular sugar is, you have, when I was a kid, I think it was like 45%, 50%, I'm sorry, 55 to 60% fructose. But nowadays, we could be seeing, hold on just a second. But nowadays, getting back to that, we're seeing stuff that's 65, 75, possibly even 80% fructose. That's, in my opinion, that is one of the main causes of childhood obesity and diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Oh. So hopefully these recipes, and when I, getting back to when I got started off doing this, because I got so sick for so long, I had had diet issues my entire life. I could never gain any weight. I always had bowel issues. So I'm happy to say that 90% of all of that has resolved since I changed up my diet. And it's not easy. It really isn't. But it's, I think if you give my recipes a try, especially if you have a picky eater, that, you know, who doesn't necessarily like not like a blueberry waffle or apple cinnamon waffle? And yes, I'm rambling. This is really my first time on camera trying to work with the monitors so I can see what I'm doing, trying to get used to looking over here instead of at the monitor. I don't know. Might have to put another monitor over there now that I'm thinking about it. That would probably be a good idea. But originally, I had just wanted to do a cookbook because none of the dietitians or nutritionalists that I spoke with that the doctors recommended really knew much about celiac disease. Not a single one. I talked to 6 or 8. None of them understood the severity of my celiac disease. So, not just, it wasn't that I couldn't eat just wheat, barley, and rye. I had reactions to corn, oats, quinoa, millet, sorghum, everything that is considered, quote, gluten-free. That's a long story. I thought, and then trying to find personal care provider because I was at the point that it was almost impossible for me to cook for myself. I couldn't find anybody that understood, had any experience with it. So I thought, okay, well, you know, I'll find these recipes, make a cookbook, and then maybe the Department of Health and Human Services could share it with people that were signing up to be providers. In Nebraska, they're called PASS providers, personal assistance services. But you know, I couldn't find a single one. I called 30, and you know, just nobody understood any of it. So I just said, okay, um, I'll try to make a cookbook. And then that way, if I could find a service provider, then I would have the cookbook to give to them. Well, like I said, that was just uh, a lot of time and energy that I just didn't think was going in the right direction. And by the time I figured out the recipes, I was like, okay, well, I can do this myself. And at that point, I was also uh, batch cooking. You have to forgive me sometimes on the loss for words. The MECFS that I have, one of the biggest issues is brain fog. And it comes and goes in waves. The more tired I am, the worse it is. That again, uh, story for another day. All right, last one, guys. Um, so yeah, I gotten to the point that my recipes were coming together, and I had to go through thousands. I mean, I bought 5 or 6 different um, gluten-free cookbooks. Probably spent 300-400 bucks on those, and they all contained high carb replacements like tapioca starch or oats or millet or sorghum that I couldn't eat. I finally ran across some of the keto recipes, spent another couple $100 on cookbooks for keto. Didn't need a carnivore recipe. I mean, seriously. I was a meat and potatoes kid my entire life. But with the hip issues and the MECFS, a lot of the keto recipes were just okay, mix this up, slap it in a waffle iron, and it may not sound like a lot of work, but when you only have 3,500 steps a day like I do, that's it's a lot of work to get out a bowl, mix an egg, half a cup of cheese, and throw it in a waffle iron just to make 2 chaffles that you can use for a sandwich. It's a lot of work. So that's where I figured out all these ways to batch cook efficiently and consistently and get more out of the recipes than really what a lot of other people do or had been doing. Okay, so now that we're down to the last one, this has been a lot of talking and a lot of energy thinking about all this stuff. So thankfully we are done with that batch. And comes the fun part now. Okay, might not be able to use that stool. I've tried so many different options and none of them really seem to work. We need cinnamon. Where is my cinnamon? There we go. We need to drain our apples really quick. Now, as you can see, that's actually pretty. They're still nice and crisp. They haven't browned. Normally, by the time you would get that done, they would start to soften and change colors. So we're just going to drain our apples. You don't want to go crazy drying these off either. If you get them too dry, you don't have anything for the cinnamon to stick to. I do this by eye because you never really get a consistent amount of apples. I just know that a 3-pound bag, 3.5-pound bag, whatever this is, makes enough for one whole batch of chaffles, which generally makes 32 to 36. It varies. So what I like to do is just heap it on. And, you know, you can do this with a spatula. Wooden spoon. You can do it with your hands if you want, you know, but you'll end up smelling like cinnamon, which might be a good thing. Yeah, that doesn't help. So that looks pretty good. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I'm going to go in and do one more dose here so you can kind of see. Got to keep throwing stuff around. Okay. All right. So that there looks pretty good. And now I guess I can grab the dehydrator real quick. Put our cinnamon away. Oh. All right. So, getting back to things, just like so, you can see we've had the blueberries in there for a while. And now we're just going to go through. The reason why I put the rack down here is because of the fact you're going to spill. So it is easier space is a good thing. I try not to use the very upper rack in any dehydrator. This is a new one, by the way. This is the Keen Star. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tray. I do have Amazon affiliate links that if you guys want to help out the channel a little bit and you're looking for a dehydrator, or you're looking for a good bench scraper, peeler, mixing bowls, spices. Amazon's actually pretty affordable when it comes to spices, especially if you buy them in bulk. The silicone mats too on these, because the original is just stainless steel. This would probably work for apples this size. Most of your blueberries would fall through them though, and these aren't that expensive. Just get a good silicone dehydrator sheet. Again, links will be in the video or down below. Being that this is a new dehydrator, I can't tell you right now cooking times. I generally vary most articles and cookbooks are going to recommend 135 degrees for 8 to 12 hours. I don't like to dehydrate these into oblivion. I still want a little bit of moisture in them because I use them right away. You know, this isn't something that's going to stay in a bag for 6 months. These go pretty much straight from the dehydrator into a batch of chaffles. If you do dehydrate them completely, what I have found is you do lose some flavor, and the texture isn't the greatest because you have to add water back into the apples before you put them in the chaffle maker dough. So just don't over dehydrate. My older one, bit bigger, a lot more airflow. We'll see. I've got this one set right now for 130 for 8 hours. We'll check on it, see how it turns out, and flicker in. And I'll let you guys know after it's dehydrated. I'll be doing the. This is going to get broke down into my standard bread and bun chaffle mix, then my blueberry, and then my apple cinnamon waffles. A lot of stuff to cut out of this. But thanks for sticking around, guys. Hopefully the mic worked good. We'll find out, but I'm going to call that quits for the day. I'm exhausted. So if you haven't yet, hit like and subscribe. Check back often. Swing over to the website if you want to pick up the recipes in PDF form. And also check out the Amazon affiliate links that I have listed for the equipment and tools that I use. Helps out a little bit. It's not much, you know, but every little bit helps. Take care. See you guys next time.